So I am going to tell you about Michigan. Okay, so some geography. The capital is Lansing, but I didn't know Lansing and I know Detroit, so I think it should be Detroit because yeah, Detroit is a much more famous city. The population is 9.91 million people, and that was recorded, was sort of counted in 2014. The area of the whole state is 250,000 square kilometers, so it's a over average size state, I would say, but it's 41% covered in water, so it isn't that big. This is a photo of Lansing. Yeah. Okay, so then we have some climate. I would say the climate is kind of similar to Denmark. The average temperature, which is the pink one right here, is in the winters. In January it's about -5 degrees. Not Fahrenheit. And in the summers it tops at the the sort of average temperature is 21 degrees, 22 degrees, and when it's max, it's up at the 28s, so close to 30. Yeah, and the coldest is it has recorded is -9 degrees, and this is all recorded last year. So yeah, the conclusion is that it's similar to Denmark. I would say that Denmark has a little more extreme weather conditions in the temperature department, but there's a lot more downpour and much more wind in Michigan than in Denmark. Okay, so some history. Michigan, they joined the Union in January 1837, and what is the Union, you might ask? It's United States. It's also very famous for, or Detroit is very famous for the first car assembly line, which was made by Henry Ford, or the car manufacturer Ford, which is one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world. Yeah, and also Michigan was one of the last places that the British had control over. It wasn't called Michigan at that point, but it was, they had control of that place. But apart from that, there isn't a lot of history. I think there's also something about the Indians. That some Indians would like to be there because the British had control, and they were afraid from the real Americans that they would kill them, the new Americans. So 3 things to know about Michigan. No. Yeah. Don't stop it. Three known things about Michigan. I made a mistake right now. There's the big city, Detroit, which makes Ford's cars, but actually not anymore. They moved out, and that has made a big economical impact on Detroit. There's a lot of poor people now because they don't have any jobs. There's a lot of missing jobs for people that need them. So that's a big problem right now. Michigan is also famous for the Mechanic Bridge. It's 5 miles, so that's even longer than Storebæltsbroen in Denmark. So yeah, and they was very famous for the Motown records, which they were the ones that recorded Elvis, Beatles, and the Rolling Stones, and also some new rappers and a lot of famous people and bands and artists, whatever. Okay, then I have some famous people from Michigan. There's Tyler Oakley. He's a very famous YouTuber or slash blogger. He makes video blogs, and he just tells about his life, and then he makes question and answer videos, which is where his audience answers him questions, and then his audience gives him questions and he answers them. So yeah, he's also very famous for being gay. Yeah, and then that's Floyd Mayweather. He's a very successful boxer. especially famous with the fight against Pacquiao, which is another famous boxer. In that fight, he won $250 million, and that fight didn't take a lot of time. So I think he's probably one of the people that has made the most money in a short period of time. Yeah, and there's also Taylor Lautner, which I don't really know, but the girl said that he's really hot, and he's from Twilight, and he's the werewolf or something. So yeah, that's great. And then there's some famous sites. There's the Michigan Island. It's called the same as the bridge, Mechanic or something like that. Mechanic Bridge, the island, and that's very famous for. Not very famous, but it's people like this place because it has very luxury hotels, and you can do a lot of activities like horse riding, touring the landscape, riding horses. I think I said that, and going onto boats in the sort of very beautiful water, something. And then there's also the big Lake Michigan, which covers, or that is a part of what covers 41% of Lake Michigan water. So that's a very big lake. It also has very big islands that people like to go, like Mechanic Island. There's also a museum, the Ford Museum, where they walk you through the car manufacturing of the early car manufacturing, and they talk about the history of Ford. And I think that's it for today. I want to talk about Wyoming, the state of equality. So I'm gonna start by talking about some geography. Wyoming is situated in the northwest, but kind of middle of the USA, as you can see on this map. It's 251 square kilometers, and only 0.7% water. So it's a lot of land, not a lot of water. It's also in the middle, so that makes sense. There isn't any sea around it or anything. The capital is Cheyenne, and it isn't really a very famous city or anything. It's just their capital. The population of the whole state is only 500,000 people, which isn't a lot. When you think about it, it's the 10th biggest state in the United States, and that population is actually the lowest of all states in the USA. So the population isn't very dense. They are very spread over all of the state, so they don't live close together. That's what I'm trying to say. The climate, it's kind of like Denmark. The sort of average temperature in the winters, in February, January, gets down to the -3 degrees, and in the summer and in June, July, it gets up to the 21 degrees in average temperatures. The hottest it has been recorded since 2010 is 29 degrees, and in the winter it's -14 degrees. So yeah. And I got some history. There isn't any history, so that's very interesting. I don't think it's a very old state, so that hasn't happened a lot. And that doesn't live a lot of people, so there's probably not so much to tell about the state. So yeah. Then 3 things about Wyoming that I want to talk about. Their sort of main income is coal. There are coal mines, and the largest coal mine is called Black Thunder. That sounds kind of cool, I guess. And also a very interesting thing is that they have the lowest population, but it's the 10th largest sort of in square miles of all states in the United States. So it's in area it's very big, a very big state. And they also produce 3 million tons of coal a week, which is a lot. Then I have about some famous people. I didn't know any of them, so there was a few that I didn't know them, but I saw a list. But I didn't think any of them were very interesting. That a lot of them were like actors that didn't get into movies anyway. So yeah. Then some famous places. There isn't like the Grand Canyon or something like that. It isn't. There isn't any sort of famous place that people know the name of, but it is famous. But Miami is very famous for its very beautiful landscape, as you can see in this photo. Lots of sort of clear area where there's not a lot of people, so it's sort of natural. This is a photo of some bisons. There's also bisons in Miami. There isn't any in Europe, so I guess that's kind of interesting. But I don't think Miami is the only state having bisons, and yeah, and that's it.